Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 16th, 2023 Board of Selectmen's meeting. This evening, our meeting is being held remotely in accordance with guidance issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 2020 with respect to open meeting law. You participants can attend this call. Hopefully they're on it already if they plan to attend, by getting the link from our agenda, which is posted on the website. There is a passcode. The first item I will do is take a roll call vote of the Board of Selectmen. Robin Hunter, present.
Bob Springett, present.
John Jeffries here.
And so now we can begin the meeting. The first item of business is citizens' comments. All right, there being none, we can move on to the first item on our agenda, which is which really is going to be a public hearing. And Carl, can we start this? The time is 6:40 for the public hearing.
You'll need to wait to
Okay,
6:40, yes.
All right.
But we can take other items and
Right, that's what I was thinking. So how about we do the next item on the agenda, item 1.2, and that's a discussion regarding the police chief recruitment and the board liaison to that committee.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I could just interrupt. Although we on the printed agenda, it says 6:40. On the advertised notice of the hearing, it is 6:30. So,
Oh, then we can do this.
and our representative from Verizon, I see, is here with us. So yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, so Alex Marrero representing Verizon is with us this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Alex, to just go over the issue here.
Yes, sorry about that. Good evening, esteemed members of the Board of Selectmen. My name is Alexander, last name Marrero, M-A-R-R-E-R-O. I'm a resident of 17 Cross Street, Marlborough, Massachusetts, and I'm an employee of Pike, P-I-K-E, Telecom and Renewables LLC, an authorized contractor for Verizon of New England. Verizon has asked me to talk about this particular petition in front of you tonight. So Verizon is petitioning the Board of Selectmen to place a new joint-owned pole to be numbered pole 11-1 to be placed approximately 34 feet from existing pole 11 and to be placed in front of the property numbered 14 Pleasant Street in the town of Dover. This is being requested by Verizon New England Incorporated in order to provide support for existing pole 11. What that basically means is that we'll be running a new guy wire from pole 11 to the new pole 11-1, and there will be a new guy wire going from pole 11-1 over to the ground in front of 14 Pleasant Street. In terms of pole that we are proposing to place a 40-foot class 2 wood utility pole. Are there any questions about this particular petition?
Right, so will poll number 11 remain there?
no, it's gone. It was taken down, right? Alex, that was the pole that was broken.
My understanding is that that pole was replaced because it basically failed for I believe due to some sort of weather condition.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it's across the street, right? It's across Pleasant Street. One's on one side, one's on the other.
So the existing is in front of 21 and the one we're proposing is going to be in front of 14.
Right.
And so as you go to the work, will the previous pole 11 be taken away, or will they both reside there in perpetuity?
he said it was already gone.
No, I don't. Is it already gone?
My understanding is that pole 11 was already replaced.
It was replaced. It's not gone.
Okay,
So will we have two polls, 11 and 11-1?
Yes, when the new pole is installed,
Okay, and the reason for 11-1 is what?
to provide support to pole 11.
Okay, okay. But it is across the street, right?
Right,
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
right. One's on 14, one's on
Yep.
21.
yeah, okay.
I was confused because I thought 11-1 was replacing 11. But had I read this more closely, I would have realized it was providing support for 11.
That was
Yeah.
the diagram that laid it out, you know.
Yeah, I'm not good with diagrams.
Well, now that we have that all cleared, would you like a motion, Robin?
Sure, I can make the motion. I move to approve the installation of one JO pole P.11-1 on the southerly side of Pleasant Street at a point approximately 40 feet southwesterly from existing pole 11, which is located on the northerly side of Pleasant Street.
Second,
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Oh, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Thanks, you too.
We appreciate the explanation.
Yes, have a pleasant evening.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll do item 1.2, which is a discussion regarding police chief recruitment and the board's and appointment of the board's liaison to that search committee and also establishment of that search committee. So for those residents participating in today's call or who are going to look at the recording, the police chief gave us, he's noticed that he will be retiring effective April 1st. Following his retirement, he will continue to work in his current position at the town of Dover through September. And he's been a wonderful police chief. I wish him the best of luck in his retirement. I tried to convince him not to retire so early, but it seems as though he's ready. So we have to let him go. He's been very, very gracious with his time, making sure we get enough time to get the right candidate for Dover. He recognizes how important that is. And I really thank him for his graciousness. Even though I think he's too young to retire, but that's my own opinion.
He's been a sterling police chief for Durham. I only know Joe and the current chief. So when was the last time? How long has he been? When was the last time we did a search?
The 12 years, has it been?
Yeah, it's been a while.
So we don't really have a lot of history here, huh? Like we do with town administrators, since we knows a lot.
Right. I mean, the other thing, he's really been wonderful, and we're just at the beginning of the process. He has recommended different search firms, based upon his network, because it's a very specific search firm that does these kinds of searches.
Yeah.
Why don't we pass an executive order that says he cannot retire? And
He carries a gun, John.
we'll make Bob and I the acting police chief, so we have all the day-to-day, like, actual policing duties. That would be a great idea, right?
Not sure you have the qualifications.
Robin, can you share, or do you have any insight about how the process works? Is it very similar to the TA process?
So Carl may have a little bit more. I know from the last time we set up a search committee, and clearly the search committee did a phenomenal job. We also hired a search firm. The one thing I did, the chief will help us and can help us as we think about a profile and the right candidate. you know, this is gonna be a very collaborative process with him. He's been a very successful chief of police for us. And I think his input is just really gonna be invaluable as we try and find the right candidate to replace him.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, it's a small town, it's community policing, it's a very different beast. And yeah, we're gonna have to be, just, I mean, it's like, we're careful on all of the hires, but I mean, it's
Right.
a very prominent role and we have to get it right. There's no question.
So,
Right,
Robin-
and he, you know, he, over the years, the police, the force that we have now is really a good fit for the community. And it's important that we bring in the right kind of leader for all of them as well.
Yep,
Because we
I
want to
agree.
continue what's been built.
yep.
So Robin, in just as a segue to that, what I'd offer, as you know, and most people watching know, I've worked with the chief on the last 3 contracts. I know how he thinks in terms of the contracts. We've had 3 very successful negotiations with the union. I know how this group of people that are the current officers who interact with the chief, how they are currently working with him. So I would be happy to do any part of this in terms of the liaison with the working group. And then what I'd also suggest is, if I do that part, I know that you are doing the TA search, then I think that would give us a little bit of each, a little bit of space to be able to see how these various searches are going and keeping them on track. This one is going to be a little bit different than the TA search, but you know, just as history in this background, I think that might be appropriate. It doesn't obviously have to be the entire portion of it, but because the chief will be with us through all of this, which is a big help.
No, John, I think that you have pretty good insight in, because of the negotiations. I think
Right.
you have pretty good insight into how it works and have a nice relationship with the chief. So I think that would be a sort of a no-brainer. Huh? And I
Right.
qualify for being able to talk about no-brainers. So
No, I mean, John, that would be fantastic if you would take the lead on this, work with Carl and the police chief, you know, teeing this up.
Yeah.
but you
I think-
can't do it from LA, John. You're gonna actually have to.
Yeah, I promise I will come back eventually. I will say it's actually really, really nice out here to be in short sleeves all the time. And the other thing I would add to that, Robin, is you mentioned, both you and Bob mentioned, we have a great team right now in the policing. And I know the sergeants really well, and I know how they think about each of their roles. You know, one's the overnight sergeant, one's a day sergeant, one's the 4 to 11 sergeant. So we really have a good group. There's a diverse group expertise wise within those ranks. And I also know, you know, Matt Larrabee, our detective, really well. So I can at least give you some feedback and give the board feedback as to how a different type of person is going to possibly relate to all of the members of the staff. So I think that may be helpful in this process.
No, I think it would be very helpful. And with that, I am going to move to appoint John Jeffries to serve as the selectmen's liaison to the police chief search committee.
Second,
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
hi, Bob Sprant.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Thank you, John.
So John, you have a lot of work. Maybe Carl or Mona can find whatever we did all those many years ago.
The history.
I'm sure the search firm can help us with that as well.
So somewhere on the 3rd floor, Robin, there's a box that says chief search
You mean in the townhouse, John?
in the
They didn't
townhouse.
throw it away?
No, it's
The other person you could reach out to is Jim Dolly, because I believe he was the selectman in charge for that search.
I will. I think you're right, Robin. I will.
Yeah, if my memory serves me correctly.
That's probably sounds about right from a time perspective.
It would
Right.
be Carol's. It would be Carol or Jim, and that would be about right.
I am almost certain it was Jim. All right, so our next item of business is to approve and execute the 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Mr. Valente or Carl will present the 2023 annual town meeting warrant.
Great, thank-
I would, before he does that, like to thank everybody for all the work that was done. Bob, I know you had many meetings and the committee really did a nice job working with sponsors on the warrant. I would also like to thank Carl for his suggestion on putting on the face of the warrant what it is. The most obvious thing in the world, but you know, it makes a lot of sense to let people know why they're getting this and what the purpose of it is. So Carl, I really appreciate that. I just wonder how, I think I've been doing this for almost 9 years. How did that not occur to me that, you know, maybe we should put something on the face of the warrant, but sometimes the most obvious things just aren't apparent. So thank you. So
Sure.
Carl, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. The warrant is complete with a couple of non-substantive pieces that we're still waiting on to finish, which I'll identify as I go through a few of the pages. But just a couple of things to point on your attention if you look at, I know the draft you have. So the board had talked, and there was a working group that Mr. Springett had pulled together regarding town meeting, that we may need to have a second night of town meeting. And if we did, the preference would be to put that the following Monday. So town meeting would start on Monday, May 1st, and then continue on Monday, May 8th. So we added that to the cover so that it would alert people that if there is a second meeting, a second night, it wouldn't be Tuesday or Wednesday, it would be the following Monday.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's sort of one little tweak that's different from the past. At the bottom of the cover page of it, where we talk about the open hearing, which is for Monday, May 13th. Right now, you see I have it highlighted where it says to be held remotely. That discussion with representatives from the warrant committee will be like tomorrow morning, and to make a discussion whether it be remote or in person. So whatever the group decides tomorrow morning, we'll either leave that as is or clarify if it's in person.
So Carl, in the event it is held remotely, I'm assuming we would put the Zoom information there now, or would we say, check the website?
Probably do both. So
Okay.
yes, I think we put it there, but we're also want to start encouraging people to check the website, because that's where we're going to put all of our town meeting materials, information, handouts, and so forth on there. So when we get to the next page, you'll see
I saw that.
the
Right.
hyperlink. So you sort of can't repeat things enough, to get people's attention. So then on the inside cover, so to speak, again, we're suggesting to the board that you just have this one page just to explain what this document is, why they're getting it. what open hearing is, because that's not a term that defines itself. So we wanted to just explain what the open hearing is. And then we added a paragraph just about town meeting, just to try to get people's attention on why they should go to town meeting. Not only to learn about their town government, but to participate and vote in their town government. And hopefully we'll have more opportunities to, promote the value of attending town meeting as we get, over the next few months. But again, this inside page is something just we wanted to try that's new, if the board's in agreement with that. Most of the next articles are pretty standard. You've seen them before. So not a lot of anything new to talk about there. The first article I just would like you to just think about. No decision needs to be made, but Article 14, which is something we've had in the warrant before, appropriate for one-time projects, where the board has asked that we set aside a sum of money for some specific projects that are of interest to you. And the one that at least I've been thinking about in particular, and I had this discussion with Mr. Springett this morning, is at the end of last year, you had talked about with the Chris Dwelly and Kate O'Brien about having an outside firm come in to make a recommendation on an overall communications plan for the town. And then both of them moved on to a new position, so that was just left at that point. But should that be something you want to pursue and have some funding to do that during next year, this would be a place that you would appropriate that money for that purpose.
So we don't need to have a specific cause now. It's something we could add at a late, we don't need to list it now.
You don't, the way we're handling it, and it's been handled in the past, and it's sort of highlighted on the very bottom of page 6, is we'll file the list, if there is a list, if you want to, with the town clerk. And then, of course, we'll also put it on the website. It will become one of our items for this article that sort of says, here's what we're proposing, the town's proposing for Article 14. So nothing that you need to do different now. The warrant can go the way it is. But over the next few weeks, something you should think about, whether, again, this communications review should be one, or if there's anything else on your list that you've discussed over the year.
Okay.
The next one I want to just point out is Article 20.
Hey, Carl, before you get to 20, can I ask about 17?
Sure.
So there's been several discussions about Article 17, and I've asked Mark Gahoney a couple of times what their thoughts were, and he's told me the last 2 times I've spoken to him that they intend to have this article in the June meeting, not in this meeting.
That's my understanding as well. In terms of the withdrawing it, just for scheduling reasons, the Park and Rec Commission has not been able to call a meeting in time for this purpose to vote to withdraw it. And so that's why it's still here, because in the absence of them being able to meet, the last vote you have is for them asking for the article. But every indication that I have is that it will be withdrawn on town meeting floor and then become an article at the special town meeting in June.
And just to remind people, that would be consistent with the way we handled things back in 21.
Right.
Thank you, Carl. Sorry.
You're welcome. To the next one, just to point out, is Article 20 about amending the wetlands protection bylaw. So late this afternoon, I received some new language from the Conservation Commission. It's not substantive. What they're looking at, they've added some new language right now under the bylaw. When they have an application, the bylaw calls for them to mail a notice of that application to a number of different players, including town offices. So they have to go mail first-class mail to our DPW and 3 or 4 different town offices. So I think they're a very common sense point of view. They want to change that notice just to email and leave the notice to abutters and so forth. That to be done by first-class mail. So that's the change in that section B that's just highlighted. I left it highlighted. That's what you have highlighted, the current language, and the new language will again refer to just emailing our own internal departments.
So Carl, just so I'm clear, it would start with by emailing a notice to the applicant, the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, or just
the town departments will
Or,
get
yeah,
it via
mail-
email.
Yeah, the town departments will be done by email, but the applicant
We'll still get a
will
mail.
still get a mailing.
okay.
And then section E, which is just bringing the bylaw consistent with their rules and regulations in terms of fees. The two are inconsistent now.
Right.
So that's the same. We did a little housekeeping on the actual wording. Again, I received it late this afternoon. Just referring to the statute that allows the town to charge an applicant if we, the town, incurs consulting fees. So we added some clarification language late this afternoon. So that will appear in the final version is that clarification language. And so that's it. And what we'd like the board to consider is, as you vote this tonight, to approve the warrant, but authorize the town administrator to make these non-substantive changes that may be necessary or may be recommended by town council. And I should add, town council has reviewed all of this. So I do have all of town council's comments, but I'm a little bit of a belt and suspenders person, just in case I get something late before we go to print from town council. I just want your authority to make any non-substantive changes.
So I'm okay with that. Are there any objections? All right.
No.
So then I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 annual town meeting warrant and authorize the interim town administrator to make non-substantive changes as may be necessary or recommended by town council.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Well, thank you, Carl. That's one box you could tick.
Yep, that's right. Thank you.
Maybe you have tomorrow you'll be able to tick that box.
Robin, before we move on, can I just ask Carl, I wanted to wait until we were done to not cloud any of the conversation, but with regards to the communication effort and where we are right now, it doesn't preclude us from hiring a consultant to help us between now and whatever time frame, certainly in as it relates to this between now and town meeting. But you're saying for the scope of
Yeah, it's a bigger project,
it's a bigger scope,
right?
which is consistent with what we have been talking about for the past almost 2 months now. We really have to address this.
Yes.
I'm 100% in favor of that, but
I think we're all on the same page.
yeah,
Right.
I definitely don't want to lose the fact that we need somebody, and I'll talk about this in our updates, we really do need somebody to be a coordinator and a gatekeeper and just to continue to move the process along.
Okay.
And I'll do the same in my updates. Following up on your last meeting when you asked me to reach out to individuals or firms who could provide this service. So I'll report on that a little later.
Oh, perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
So then I think we should move to item 1.5, which is the Board of Selectmen updates. And I would suggest that we follow the bullets, and then if there's anything more to add, we can do that. So the first item is the progress update on rebidding of the community center project. So, Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple of nits, I guess.
Okay.
I was going to talk about this also in my update, and so I'm just going to, so the selectmen ultimately concluded, this is the second paragraph, that this option was not possible. That was the option about a design that would fit into the current budget of $19 million without complete alteration of the current design, blah, 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 blah. My problem there is that if you go back historically, we were never actually presented with an option for $19 million. It never actually happened. We asked for it, but it just didn't happen, right? We never got one.
Well, they basically told us they couldn't do it.
Well, yeah.
Right? You know, whether they couldn't do it because they didn't want to do it. But
Right,
they
so-
basically, I mean, there were a couple of things they said. I mean, this is why this whole process is somewhat frustrating.
Yes,
Because we committed to bring it to town meeting in June.
yes.
And then we were told that
Yes,
there wasn't enough time
right.
to do everything that needed.
Parameters shifted from August to November. I mean, that's true. So then as we go on, in November, after having engaged a peer review consultant to help identify cost savings options that could be incorporated into design and voted to proceed with the rebidding of the original project. Well, what happened there was we actually there, and then with new bid documents to be issued in winter of 2020. Winter of 2023. So the new documents will include changes that were made and implemented as a result of the discussions that we had back in November. The original peer review discussions were talking about very large savings, and that was not practical, that we could do that within the timeframes that we thought was necessary to do. There was a secondary list of articles that were identified by the peer review team and the architects, and the savings on that piece of work was about $750,000. And at our last meeting, when we looked at what ultimately came out of all that, was savings of about $330,000. And there were specific things that were changed in the design documents, and that's what they've been working on since November. So I would really like this to reflect the fact that we did the peer review. We were determined to hit the June date, and that there were suggestions that had been made by the peer review and confirmed by the architects and the OPM, and they have been included in the documents that are going to go out to bid at the end of February, beginning of March. The most significant was around the windows. And replacing the windows with fiberglass frame windows that have a monetary and savings and a higher sustainability number. And one of the ones that weren't included was about the wood framing in the building. So there was give and take, there was discussion, there was agreed set of conclusions. And that should be, I like to see that reflected, because there was a lot of work that went into those negotiations and the current design and the revised design documents. And we went back and forth. And that was sort of it. So it's really not rebidding of the original project. It's not really the original project. It's a modified project. So the wording, that's why I say they were nits.
Well, Robin, can I comment?
Can you make suggestions?
Yeah, I can do. I just want to talk about it now. Then I can send Carl something tomorrow or something like that. But it's just saying the work was, we reviewed the materials. We asked the building committee to do X, Y, and Z. We got the building committee and the architects to do revisions to their original plans that ultimately wound up saving less money than we hoped, but it did save money. And the reason why we couldn't get more was because we said we needed to be done by June. We couldn't go beyond June. So that that time frame made sort of sharpen people's focus.
Right, I mean, it was just when I was reading this, it's just because the way I am, I was thinking this is just the report for the calendar year 2022. And those decisions weren't made until 2023. But I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to add a little color given where we are today.
Yeah. I think a lot of the work was done in 2022. Sort of getting approvals from the board took place in 23.
So, Bob, I would, in reading this, my reaction immediately went to, in thinking about this, my reaction went to what Robin's comment was as soon as everyone stopped last week. Robin's immediate response was, I'm underwhelmed. And I think that really captured my exact same response, that we
John,
put.
you never agree with me.
Okay, once or twice a year.
You might want to stay in California.
Yeah, he's mellow now, Rob. He's really mellow right now. He's like chill.
Right.
The moons and the stars are shifting out here. It must be the cosmic nature of Los Angeles. So I was completely in agreement with Robin, although we have to go on record saying that happens occasionally. But the peer review, the process, the peer review, the modifications were due. All the substantive changes that the peer review came up with were much deeper, reflected a broader base, and reflected a $1.2 million in savings. So to go from, say, 15% down to 5%, it seems like you missed the whole the peer review dollar amount that we actually came up with. So I agree with Bob. It should be noted that we went deeper, broader, but because of the time constraints, we weren't able to bring.
Well, there were two things, John. It was we really limited the amount of time, and so that reduced the list. That was,
well, we were cornered into, because the issue was, Park and Rec voted to petition for a town meeting before the end of the year.
Right.
So we needed to, we did everything that could be done. We did our diligence, the peer review was very, very informative.
But remember,
some
right,
of the items there were included, but at the end of the day, the significant ones, like changing the exterior, which was $500,000, there wasn't enough time. I mean, who knew you had to redesign the entire building to allow for that to go out to bid?
Well, don't also remember we went with Renovate Carroll, which also hamstringed us in the number of ways.
Right.
Without doing this, or at least putting in a footnote or something that can be referred to, like, not that we have anybody like this in the town of Dover, but a sarcastic person could come to us and say, all this all the money and time we've spent, and this is what you're giving us?
Yeah.
That's not a lot to show for it. So,
No, but and I think we said it quite a number of times last week. We basically had our backs against the wall because of time constraints. And then there's a very long lead time to actually prepare the documents to go out to bid, to pre-approve the bidders.
Yeah,
And then so it's not, and that's what we keep forgetting. It's not the same as, for us as homeowners.
right. Working with somebody in the backyard.
Right, you just go out to bid. If you don't like the bids, you can call up 5 other places and see if you can get.
So just
cheaper
that
price.
process is 5 months.
Right,
In the
right. So we
public
were
sphere.
really, I mean, you could take a step back and we accomplished a lot given the constraints presented to us via the municipal bidding process and then the time constraints that we put upon ourselves.
yeah. As Dave Haviland reminds us all the time, nobody remembers, or the selective memory doesn't want to remember what we said, or the warrant committee said, or capital budget said, or a committee of XYZ said 4 months before, 6 months before, a year before at town meeting. There are those that have very selective memories. So I think this is a great idea.
So Carl, you want me to send you something?
Sure.
That would be great.
Okay. But you're already bothering me tomorrow. I have to get up really early to come to this town meeting.
Well, you can start working on it early then.
Right. Just have a cup of coffee, Bob.
Good
Maybe I
answer,
need
Carl.
2 for this one.
Excellent answer.
So I have one other question. It's on the personnel changes. I don't remember Mark Lavoie as an IT specialist, information specialist.
He was with the town for a relatively short period of time, maybe 3 months.
Working with Dave?
Yes. And Dave left. He overlapped with Dave for about a month, maybe a month, 6 weeks before Dave left for his new position.
Anybody else? Am I the only one?
No, I agree. I don't think I ever met him.
Okay.
I
I don't
know,
feel that.
I met him.
I know him. I'll leave it at that.
He really exists.
He was like a mystery guy.
That was like the Wizard of Oz. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtains. Like we saw a face and it went away.
Because we always had that open rec for Diana Pizak, and I never knew it was actually used. Anyway, that was just, I didn't know if I needed to say it because I
You
just
were second guessing the
Yeah.
report.
yeah, no, it's okay. It was just, is it right?
Right. No?
I'm done. Thank you.
Carl just gave a professional witness. Visual verification.
Okay.
KW. So I can give a quick update on the town administrator search.
Do we have to move on that? I move to approve the amended 2022 Board of Selectmen Annual Town Report. It looks like there's a motion.
Is there?
No, that was prior.
Yeah, we did that already, and I wouldn't say that these changes are substantive. I think they're just adding
Yeah.
detail.
Okay.
I mean, Carl, unless you think we need to authorize the edits. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
The committee asked for you to approve their edits. They were not substantive. It was true editing, but they asked that we bring this edited version back to you for approval.
So then I would move to approve the edited version of the Board of Selectmen's reports, as well as edits that will be provided based upon the discussion we had this evening in connection with the Carroll Community Center building project.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right. And Carl, should we say we authorize you to submit the changes? Do I need to add that to the amendment? To
No,
the
no, you do
motion?
not.
Okay,
No,
good.
you do not.
Because doing these motions on the fly is very stressful. Did you hear that, Mona? Very stressful.
Mona, don't pay attention.
The next item is the town administrator search. So I've been in contact with Community Paradigm on a weekly basis. They have successfully completed their conversations with each of us separately. What they are going to do is based upon consensus that they had. They're going to pull together a draft profile for us to use as a basis of a conversation when we have a meeting scheduled with them. And the idea for that meeting is to use that as the basis for conversation, and then hopefully be able to reach final consensus on the profile. I had sent you both an email this evening with times that Community Paradigm is suggesting for that meeting. I put when I am available. Unfortunately, because I'm in Europe next week, we can't have this meeting until the week of February 27th. And I would very, very much like to have it that week. The question I have is, do you want to do this meeting in person, if at all possible?
Well, I would say yes. I always say yes.
So I had mentioned that to Bernie as well. The times that he gave us are all during the day, which is fine for me on some of the days. So in the email I sent to you and John, I let you know, and I copied Bernie on it because he ultimately is going to schedule it. So you now know when I'm available. So
Okay, got it.
I just thought at least I could start with that.
Bob, did you,
I mean, I am even willing, if it's the only time that works, to do it on Saturday of that week, because we really need to get the search started. So,
John?
I was just asked, Bob, did you reply to the dates that you're available? So
I did not see the email. I'll
Okay.
take a look after the meeting.
all
yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just thought I would send that along since we met.
Did you? So,
today.
all right. So I'll take a look tonight. I'll send you guys. I'll get that stuff out so we can really wrap this up quickly.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing because I agree with both of you. I would much rather do it in person. It goes faster. You get more. It's really a lot more efficient.
Right, and I liked his idea. He said, you know, the items where there was consensus, to start with that, and then we can work through, you know, some of the areas where they weren't consent.
So we agreed that we needed a new ETA. All the rest of the stuff, we were all over the map.
I'm not so sure of that.
Well, if you look at some of the reviews and stuff like that, it's been a pretty consistent view.
Yeah,
Right.
so, you know, I'm sure there are areas where we weren't consistent. But, you know, Bernie has been doing this for many years, and I'm sure he can act as a facilitator and provide us guidance on how to get those concepts out there. But at the same time, we don't want to have too narrow of a profile so that we don't have people actually applying for the position. So,
Robin, that was the first time you used your Boston accent on a very specific word. Bob, did you get that?
I did not.
Facilitator. Robin, you butchered facilitator. You left out 3 R's in the same word.
don't
Wow.
know. Maybe I've been living here too many
Too
years.
long, yeah.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the discussion regarding parking of vehicles at the Carroll Community Center.
So Robin, this came up a couple of different ways. One, with last week, our going forward with the timeline for Carroll. This has been on the back burner for almost 1.5 years because of us putting the project on hold. When the architect surveyed the grounds and found a couple of discrepancies with where the town boundaries were for some of the abutters properties, we then went and staked out the town property. The fence situation came up, and also the use of the property came up last year a couple of times. We really didn't do anything with it. And so in light of us moving the project forward and having now a very clear timeline, the ongoing question has been, what do we do with the current use of the lot during the construction and the pre-construction part of the project? So I asked Carl to look into it because there is no item in the town bylaw that says cars cannot be parked in the town lots overnight, right? So we don't have anything that prohibits parking. So the question is, what are we going to do with regards to cars parked overnight in the lead up to the project, during the project, or the pre-phases of the project? How do we address that?
So John, I mean, once the project is approved, right?
Right.
You said once the project is approved, that all that area is going to be closed off. It's not going to be public anymore.
Right,
Okay.
it's going to be fenced in, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then what happens after the project?
Well, so once the project is complete, that's still, Carl, you're going to have to help me out here. I mean, it's public space, right? It's not private space. It's public space. So that in theory, you could park in public space in the town of Dover. And I know that about the only thing that I know in the townhouse parking lot, we have signs up that say no overnight parking. So I don't know what the enforcement mechanism is or why we have that. So if you were worried about overnight parking in the community center's public parking lot, wouldn't we do something like have signs that say no over?
Yes.
Is that since we already have them?
Yep.
It doesn't require a bylaw. We just
No. We have the selectmen, the chief reported back, the selectmen have the existing ability to post, and we just haven't.
We haven't, because there really hasn't been a need.
Correct.
Right. So I don't know what the need is now.
So from the standpoint of, we're going to have a lot fewer spaces in the new design. The new design is going to have, where there are cars parked currently, it's going to be a two-way exit and entrance.
on public property or on a butter property?
Public property, our property.
There's going to be 70 or 80 parking spaces in, don't remember the whole number, but it's in that range in the community center property. And that's what they spec'd out.
Mhm.
There will be a more defined entrance way and exit way. And I don't know how much property will be over there to be used. And that, again, that's something we'd have to work out. But so from my perspective, it would be when the time is right, we should have no overnight parking within the parking area for the community center.
Right, and I would imagine it would say parking for community center business only.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do that, Carl. That's where you would have to say. Can you?
You can specify because it's a very broad adaptation, if you will. What the selectmen currently have the ability to post.
Okay, so that would be one way of making sure that the parking space is available for community center use and that, we have no overnight parking, et cetera. And it makes sense to me, but just that it's premature.
The wizard is back.
Carl Warnick.
The townhouse parking says no overnight parking unless under town business,
Right.
clearly.
So we could modify that for the community center.
What about the
Oh.
schools, Carl? What do the schools have?
I go in Chickering a lot. I don't notice any signs up.
Yeah, me either. I don't remember them either. But it's out of the way. You know what I mean? It's
Right. The problem, I don't know if we're going forward with EV stations, because that's another issue. People
the answer is
parking
yes.
there
Theoretically,
overnight.
Carl, yes.
Right, so that's something that has to be considered also. As
Say-
far as the project, once it starts, it, like Bob said, it'll be all fenced off, no issues, no overnight parking.
Right.
Because then it gets turned over to the GC.
Right.
So I don't see a problem with it.
Just with the posting.
Right, well, there's definitely gonna have to be looked at in the future for
Right.
parking. But present, I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken right now. Because if Carol passes, that parking lot, the whole site will be
Yeah, they all
closed
be
off
blocked.
in June. Once
So we don't
turn-
have, hey, Carl, we don't have any problems along the emergency route anymore, right? Those people have taken, remember there was some
No.
overlap?
No.
That's all been straightened out?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
But
that
Bob-
actually, the emergency route is gonna be a one-way for emergency vehicles only.
Right,
Only.
So they're gonna
Right.
post
right.
signs for that. So all
That-
the traffic coming into Carroll is gonna be from Whiting Road in and out,
Yep,
so.
okay. So
Yeah.
is that all right, John? Is that enough?
Yeah, no, that's consistent. And the other part, but Bob, I'm trying to do this also from a planning board standpoint. It's come up a couple of times where the planning board is looking at, obviously, the bylaws for the central business district, the downtown, however they're referring to it in the warrant.
Village,
And
The village
It's not
square.
a village. We are not a village. We are a town.
exactly.
So
Just-
we should actually, go back to, it's the town of Dover.
So the town of Dover is looking at the bylaws and making it consistent, so the selectmen have the ability to look at development of that area and have guidelines, and also have the ability to set authority of how that area will be developed. So the selectmen have the ability to do that. We're trying to be consistent because we are the town of Dover, has the Carroll and number 4 Whiting. So number 4 Whiting is going to be a part of Carroll.
Yep.
Number 4 Whiting is going to be renovated.
Yep, Carl's already ordered the doors.
That's 5 Whiting, John, just for a clarification.
Thank you very much.
Does that make it 9, 5
Sorry.
and 4?
So
Well, four is Dover Automotive.
Ah, that's Dougie.
that's, yeah. So the, Doug, Linda Worth, the Dover Market and Jimmy Snyder, their properties are all going to be affected by traffic patterns. And there's going to be parking that's currently existing that's going to go. It's not going to be there. As Carl mentioned, that's going to be 2-way, 3 lanes of exiting and entering on Whiting Road. The parking that exists on number 5 is going to be gone. There will be no parking at number 5, front and back.
Correct.
Correct.
So we have to be consistent with our residents and our business owners. So the message to them and the time frame to them will be consistent with what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's people who look at it and say, why is this happening now when it's all going to change? So we're
So it's a future problem.
yeah. Well, it should have been a right now problem, but we delayed it by our actions last year.
Okay.
Make sense for that?
Okay. So this is the selectmen update we're doing, Rob?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I got 2 things. I mean, on the
Okay.
community center building, on the Dover Community Center project, they're right where they should be. It's they have several meetings on making sure the bidders are pre-qualified. That's going on. It's supposed to end before the end of the month. And then construction documents, modifications have been made, taking what we had talked about last week. And so they're teed up to hit the March 1st date with the construction documents. I managed to get a meeting set up for the 3 to 5 committee. The first meeting will be on the 27th.
Okay.
We'll get that going, and I'm assuming that's what's going to happen is we're going to do some pre-work in 23 leading up to town meeting to try to make sure we get people together. We understand what people's positions is. We lay out what we think the work should be. And then I think the project really won't take off until the fall of 23. And the due date, the delivery date is the town meeting in May of 24. Now, if we can do something sooner, I think that, or more quickly, that would be okay. But that's sort of get organized, figure things out, hire a consultant. I'm not sure people are going to want to be working this summer on this particular project, and then hit the beach running in September. That's just sort of my feel right now.
Okay.
Robin, I have an update with regards to Hale. Their DA Hayden from the trustees, Rob Warren from the trustees, Amy Moot from Open Space and I met this week. Very substantive conversation and went deep into the granularity of what DA and Rob would like to do for the outreach, for the communication, for the stream and the timeline of this project as it relates to the most effective use of everyone's time leading up to a fall town meeting. And DA has lots of experience in this, and Rob Warren has lots of experience in this. And as the 4 of us, and Carl has also met with the same people numerous times, as we're working synergistically with Westwood, what we really have come to understand is what DA and what the trustees and what Rob can do with regards to the communication process. As I've reported several times, they definitely don't want to lead the process, but they want to have control of the content and the delivery of the content to Dover and to Westwood. So there's no ambiguity in the delivery of the content. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, if you're running a campaign and you're trying to get something done, the messaging has got to be consistent.
Exactly. So they are willing and able and ready and excited to put every bit of their manpower, their bandwidth behind this. They have done it before. They've been successful at it. They know the timing, and what they are asking for is from the Board of Selectmen and from Amy for us just to be on the same page and speak with one voice, which I assured them that will continue to be the case.
So, I thought that was always the plan, but I always thought that they were going to, maybe the word take the lead is not the right word, but they would start the process and do the first draft of the communication plan and then work with all the other stakeholders to ensure that it was cohesive and that what's being said in Westwood is the same as what's being said in Dover, is the same what's being said to the trustees as well as Hale. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And what happens, Robin, is the messaging and the word, I got sort of hung up on the lead. And when I asked them a couple of months ago, please tell me if this is something you can actually be the point person on, and DA and Rob both sort of took a step back. But what they really wanted in thinking it through, in letting that sort of resonate within their organization, what they came back with was, let's just clarify the terms and let's just make sure we're all on the same page. So we've spent the last 3 meetings that we've had really getting to understand what each other wants, what each other can do, and what each other is capable of doing. So, to sort of take the old words out and just insert what this means to everybody, so we're all on the same page, is the messaging, the body, the content, all the clarity of what this message should be DA, should be Rob. And then as we go out the timeline and you get closer to the actual event, what they want us to do, break down the list of people who we should be contacting, the groups we should be contacting, the Dover specific people, Council on Aging, schools, all the various organizations, Park and Rec, all of the individual groups that have an affinity to this, just like we did for the many outreach meetings that we had with regards to Carol. So that model is going to be consistent with what we did for Carol as it pertains to Hale, with DA and Rob really driving the bus on the content and the communications of that content. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really helpful, and it just, I think for everybody, letting it digest a little bit and then letting it sink in and resonate what everybody can do and wants to do was very helpful these past couple of weeks. So
no, and I mean it's always the devil's in the details. Like everybody thinks they're on the same page.
Yeah.
Carl, would you add anything to that?
No, I wouldn't. I guess the only maybe caveat is until the board has reviewed and approved what the conservation restriction looks like, which you haven't done yet, but you can't really start the messaging until
Right.
It's a key.
It's a key part of the messaging.
Yeah,
And
we'll save that for later.
yeah, and interestingly enough, they have a very specific timeline that they have used in the past. And they want to have everything ready to go, but they don't want to do it prematurely. They want to wait until town meeting for Carol happens and then have everything ready to go from that point. They want to not confuse anybody with Carol, that until the Carol process is done.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, that
Brother
makes
Dave
sense.
has his hand up.
Well, thank you. Here we go. I was gonna say, why aren't you seeing me? I've got a question. I don't know if John is running or being the liaison to them, but as the concept of getting water rights out of this situation with Hale come up?
It has come up, Dave, and the water rights is going to be addressed. That's back in the devil of the detail of what town council is going to ask for and how that will be worded in the conservation restriction. It's a use of land item. There's, subparagraph 56 of page 114. It is water, and then also water comes in the water use, and then water contamination, and in the event of, so there's a lot of the water and the use and the land use. The way that Rob Warren explained it to me, Dave, is the first part of the conservation restriction is 45 pages of things you absolutely cannot do with the land. And then the next 45 pages are exceptions to the things you cannot do with the land. Carl Valenti, would you agree with that overview?
I would, yes. Water use has come up. It's a little bit the opposite of what you try to do when you have a conservation restriction. So when you have a restriction, what you want to do is try to leave the land in as undisturbed way as you possibly can. So, a water use is then disturbing things and affecting groundwater and so forth. So, but it is an item that is part of the discussion that we've been having.
I just think the difference for the town is, we've got clear need for another source of water. And if the town is going to be asked to spend $10 million to get a solution to our water issue, and the town would own that. So what I was hoping is that they would be able to identify and carve out 1 to 3 acres out of the 660 and say, you're allowed to put well fields here. And if that's not, again, if there's 46 pages to use your example on both sides of the issue, I'm too late and the lawyers are involved. But I would also just ask that it's not only water rights and land use rights, but it's what's in the land and the air above.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, lithium mining is going to be a big thing.
What mining?
Lithium.
Well, Dover doesn't have a shortage of lithium. We do have a shortage of water. All right, I've said my piece. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. See you tomorrow.
Everyone knows it's my bugaboo.
So Dave, it's not too late. It's not that we are addressing it. It's, as Carl said, we've addressed it literally at every step of the way. And what happens, again, to go back to that example that you just used of it, to identify a specific acreage, that's not necessarily something that we want to do, because you don't want to just limit yourself to one specific set of acreage, because there's a lot of reasons why
Fair enough. That's a good point. And I thought about it as I was saying it, but the idea is to get those water rights, yes, and the ability to put in well fields, not for surface water, but down into the aquifer to feed the town of Dover. to
For
keep
our benefit.
hydrated.
Yeah, for our beneficial use. That word comes up quite a bit.
But it also, I think a town meeting, I mean, if we're being asked to do, spend $10 million on one benefit, and yet they turn around and say, but we've got this other benefit that is extremely important to the town, it makes it much more plausible. That's just my opinion.
It does. You're right. The devil is in the detail with regards to how that wording actually gets taken from your vernacular, my vernacular, and built into something that we can actually use and defend to our benefit and not to our detriment. So.
Right. And then so as long as town council knows to look for and ensure that language is in there, then we're fine.
Carl, would you add anything to that?
Because this is sort of subject to executive session, I guess I'd want to hold off on our negotiation or discussing our negotiations publicly.
Absolutely. Thank you. I've already taken too much time, but I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. So I don't have anything more to report.
So Mr. Valente's up, yes?
Right.
Great, thank you. So I just you should have a copy of an update of our project status summary. And there was 2 items I wanted to point out in particular at the very end, items 31 and 32. So item 31 was the DPW solar array. So we got very good news this past week. We were told that the next piece of work that had to be done there is a transformer had to be installed, and that there was a 6 to 8 week schedule for getting that transformer. Well, it appeared late last week and was put on the pad last week. So the transformer is in.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was great news. Now it needs to be connected up, and there's that work is maybe done or scheduled to be done. Could be done by tomorrow. May have been done by today. I haven't gotten an update, but the thought was that it would be done, if not this week, very early next week. So that was good news. And then the last piece is the piece of equipment that the power company actually installs that takes the solar power that's generated as DC and turns it into AC. We're still waiting for that to be delivered, that piece of equipment. The current estimate is that by the end of February, we will have that piece of equipment. And that's the last piece that makes this go live and actually start generating power and also generating revenue for the town. So that was all positive news we heard on that. And then the other item, item 32 on town communication. So at your last meeting, you asked me to look into bringing in some expertise to help us with communications and on some of the big projects that are coming up. I contacted 3 firms or individuals who do this type of work, interviewed them all. The final one was today. On one of the 3, I have a proposal to us. I'm waiting to hear from the other 2. But this is, and you talked about this a little, we talked about this a little earlier. This is just to get us through the next 6 months. It isn't to come up with a complete communications plan for the town. That would be a follow-up work if the board still wants to do that. But just to deal with our immediate communications needs around Hale, around the Carroll Community Center, and around town meeting, sort of those big 3 items that will be coming before our residents in the next few months. Again, I've met and interviewed all three firms and just waiting for a little bit more information before I can make a recommendation to you on one of the firms.
That sounds great. So do you expect to get proposals by next week or?
Be honest with you, I expected to have them this week or by the end of this week, so I will reach out to the other two.
We still have a day.
Tomorrow, right? That's true, but I'll still reach out tomorrow to the two that I haven't heard from and just remind them of the urgency of this, getting their information.
The sand is slipping through the hourglass.
That's all I had to report, Madam Chair.
Well, it sounds like those are two good news items, things we like. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So the last item on the agenda, we were ahead of schedule. Something went wrong.
Yeah, Dave Haviland, you can
I
blame,
think we'll blame
Dave.
Haviland. So the last item on the agenda is item 1.7, and that's the consent agenda. And in the consent agenda this evening are just two items: approval of the September 8th and 22nd and October 6th open session meeting minutes. And I stand corrected, there is only one item, the approval of meeting minutes. And so I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries. Mona, very well done. Thank you so much.
Right. And Mona, we know you're doing a lot, so we appreciate you taking care of these as well,
My pleasure.
with everything else you do for us. And with that, I am going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right. Have a safe flight back, John.
Thank you.
Right, all.
When I'm flying back, you're flying out.
That's why the conversation around airports and waiting lines and TSA and all the rest of that stuff is so pertinent and relevant today.
Yes, it is. It is.
And it's always a pain in the prat.
Yes. Well, enjoy that spring-like weather that you're having back there. Look forward to
Thank you.
seeing everybody next week.
Hey, good night.
Good night,
Safe
everyone.
travels.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.